Alrighty, everyone, we can get started with this ON1 Live Webinar. Thanks so much for joining me on this fine Friday morning. I hope everyone's having a great morning so far. Today we're going to be talking about what's new inside PhotoRAW 2021. So basically just going over all of the new features. So if you're not familiar with PhotoRAW 2021, it allows you to capture, edit, organize, enhance, and share your imagery. It combines the simplicity of a photo browser with a raw processor, a powerful effects engine, all inside a layered, non-destructive workflow that you can use on all of your devices now. To start off, let's just first talk about the Smart Organize feature inside of PhotoRAW 2021. Now, the Smart Organize mode is a powerful tool if you're looking to organize your photo library quickly because it allows you to find duplicates, images that were shot at the same location. It allows you to find similar appearance or similarly looking photographs, and it allows you to find images that were shot at the same time. So it's a very powerful tool if you're looking to organize your image library. So I'm just in this folder of images I have here. And I'm going to go over to this Smart Organize button here. This is that Smart Organize mode. And as I click on this, it pulls up the Smart Organize dialog, and I can basically choose which area that I want to search through. I'm just going to choose this current folder that I'm working on, but you can choose any folder that you'd like. And if you have a massive catalog folder library, you can actually search through the entirety of your catalog folders, which is very handy if you have, again, a very large catalog, a very large library of catalog folders that you want to search through and organize. Because typically when we're shooting, oftentimes we have our edited images and then we have our original RAWs. And if we're keeping most of those images on the same hard drives or in the same folders, we're going to end up with duplicate images or duplicate files. And so it's really easy to find your duplicates with the Smart Organize feature. So if you have a DSLR camera, typically when you're shooting digital photography, we shoot at one location or one spot. We take a bunch of images, and then we move on to another location, and we start to shoot even more images. So we basically have a group of photos here, a group of photos here, and a group of photos here, right? Well, wouldn't it be great if we could actually just group all of those images together, and then we could organize them even further? So inside PhotoRAW 2021, the Smart Organize feature allows you to group all of those similarly located images into different groups. So I'm just going to click same place here, and I'm going to search in this current photos. Again, you can search any photo library, and you can also search all of your catalog folders if you want to. I'm just going to search this current photos here, and I'll choose find. So now I have 5 different groups of all of these similarly located images here. And this allows me to browse through these groups of locations and find my favorite photograph. Now I can browse through and compare just by clicking on this compare view mode. And this will pull them up into sort of a compare view-esque screen. And if I wanted to, I can actually zoom in here. And if you do have, exactly the same angle, it's really easy to compare focus. But you can also see in here that I don't really have any focus going on in that area as well. So it's pretty easy to find the best focus if you want to zoom in and compare your images. Also, if you are just looking to kind of organize quickly and you don't need to compare anything, you can use this auto mark option inside Smart Organize, which auto mark basically marks or automatically marks your images for you depending on the rules that you choose. So I have auto mark selected, and you can see down here it's chosen a few of these images for me. And that's just telling me that these are the images that you should delete. And it's basing that off of these rules here that I choose in this gear icon. So in these preferences, I can choose any of these different rules to modify. Let's say I want to prefer the JPEG version of a photograph over the RAW. I can choose that in here. Same thing with the file size. I can prefer the smallest file size or the largest. I can prefer to have different likes. There's so many different rules I can modify in this auto mark section that'll allow me to organize my photo library even further. So that's a super handy way to basically find images that may not be the best in a group and just immediately reject them or delete them. You can either choose to reject them and that just marks them as disliked, or you could just choose to delete them. I'm just going to choose reject, and then I can select reject all marked. So now if I go and I choose done, now I have all of these images that PhotoRAW has chosen for me as the rejects, and I can see that they're marked as an X here, which is very helpful if I want to go in and organize now, because then I could just grab all of these reject images, just like that, And then I could either delete them or I could just add them into a subfolder. I could just say rejects, and then I will move those images into the rejects folder. All right, so now let's move on to the next new feature inside PhotoRAW 2021, which is the powerful Portrait AI feature. So I'm just gonna go into my catalog folders here. I have a selects folder of some portraits, and I'll just move these here like that, so it's easier to look at, and we'll grab this photograph. And with Portrait AI, it's a very powerful tool for portrait photographers because it allows you to find every single face in your portrait, and it automatically identifies them and then applies the perfect amount of retouching to them, which is incredibly handy if you have a ton of different images from a shoot that you need to go in and retouch, because you can batch process the entire shoot with Portrait AI. So with this portrait here, I'm just going to quickly kind of revitalize it, add in some basic tone and color. To do that, I'm going to go to my camera profile here. When you're shooting with RAW inside PhotoRAW, you can actually go to your camera profile and you can choose any of these camera profiles, and you can actually import your own as well. I'm just going to go down to this ON1 neutral, like that, and that's going to kind of neutralize things. If I hit the backslash key on my keyboard, it evens out the exposure a bit more, and I can see much more of those details within my portrait. Now I'm just going to hit AI Auto, and that's going to automatically develop the tone and color settings for me. So, you know, in just 2 clicks, I now have that image. Very powerful raw processing tools inside PhotoRAW to get the base exposure, and then now we have and now we have ON1 Portrait AI to go in and actually retouch those portraits. So I'm just going to hit Portrait AI tab. Once I choose that Portrait AI tab, it's going to look for all of the faces in my portrait, it's going to find them, and then it's going to apply retouching based on whatever age group that it identifies the portrait as. So I'm just going to zoom in real quick. Probably don't need that much. There we go. So now we're zoomed in. Let me just go over to my Portrait AI filter, and you can see that it's automatically found her face for me. It's masked it out. And then if I turn this off and on, it may be tough to see over zoom, but it's doing a really great job of just smoothing out the skin and then applying a bit of detail and whitening to the eyes. Because we are over zoom and it's a webinar, I'm just going to pull this up really intensely so that we can see what's going on. And what I'm pulling up on right now is this retouching slider. And the retouching slider now controls all of the details and the retouching within our Portrait AI filter. So before we had all of these different sliders that we can modify. Well, we still have those different sliders, but now we can modify the entirety of that retouching with just this one retouching slider. So I'm going to pull this up to 100 so I can see 100% of my retouching going on, and then I'm going to open up this details area. In this details area, now we can modify all of these different sliders to incorporate more skin smoothing or details into our portrait. I'm just going to pull up on my blemishes quite a bit, like that, and then I'm going to add in some detail. And that's just going to add back in some of that skin texture to my shot. So again, this is really intense, but if I turn the Portrait AI filter off and on, you see that it's doing an awesome job of just smoothing out all of the skin in the shot, and it looks incredibly natural. So it's a very powerful tool for portrait photographers. And the great thing about it is you don't have to identify or mask in any of the features. It just does it for you. So if I want to add in, you know, brightness to the face, I can just pull up on this brightness slider, and I'm brightening up that one specific area, and it's not modifying anywhere else on my shot. So it's very helpful, especially for just pulling up on different facial features. But with this shot, I'm just going to whiten the eyes a little bit, and then I'm going to pull up on the detail on them. And again, it's a bit intense, but we're going through zoom, so I just want to see, I want you guys to be able to see it. And then I'm going to pull up on this dark circles modifier, and that's going to remove any dark circles from underneath her eyes. And then we'll just enhance the brows a bit and add in some detail and contrast to them. And I think that looks pretty much perfect for our portrait. We can also modify the mouth area if we want to, but I'm actually not going to do that for this portrait just because it looks pretty fine. And let's just turn this off and on. This is the original, and this is with Portrait AI adjusted to it. Very helpful if you have blemishes you need to remove or sort of any retouching on your portrait, because you can do it in an instant with Portrait AI. And then let's say I've retouched this portrait and I like these settings. I can pull up my film strip view mode, and I can apply these settings to any group of images I want. So I'll just apply these settings to these two photographs. I'll just sync these settings. And if you have a group of images, let's say you have dozens of portraits from a portrait shoot, you can batch process them with this Portrait AI and also the powerful raw processing of Photo Raw. And in an instant, you have a bunch of retouched, stylized portraits. So now if I go over to these images, and I zoom in, well, we probably don't want that zoomed in, we'll go 50. And I hit the backslash key on my keyboard. So again, backslash key on my keyboard. This is the original, and then this is just with the settings synced that we had from the other shot. So in an instant, you can process a ton of different portraits. Very, very helpful tool for portrait photographers. So another new feature to Photo Raw 2021 are these all new brush shapes, which allow you to basically incorporate any sort of creative element you want into your scene just by brushing it on. Let's just jump into this landscape here. All I'm going to do real quickly is just hit AI Auto to develop the basic settings for my shot. Bada bing, bada boom, looks pretty good. Now I want to brush in a little bit more interest to my sky. So I'm going to go to my local adjustments here. I'm going to go down to paint with color. I'm going to use this color dropper here, and I'm going to drop it on this cloud, and that's just going to grab me sort of a white color basically. So I'll just drop that on, and now I have my cloud color. Now I can go up to this shape menu, and I have all of these different shapes I can use to modify my scene. So if I wanted to add in trees or I wanted to add in some birds, I could do that with these shapes here. I'm going to actually add in some cloud textures into this shot. So let's just use this cloud right here first. I'll bring this up really, really large, and then I'm just going to paint this on to the right side of my scene. Oops, I got to lower the feathering all the way. There we go. So now if I paint this on like that, actually I might need another one. And boom, now there's another cloud similar to that left cloud on the right side. And we can just continue to do that. I'm just going to add in another cloud that looks more like those clouds over there. I'll make it a little bit smaller. I'll rotate it. I can rotate it with just the bracket keys on my keyboard, or shift and option on the bracket keys on my keyboard. And I'll just paint this there. So that looks a little bit like that cloud to the right. And again, you can incorporate any of these different creative elements. You can also import your own cloud elements. I'm just going to grab this one here. Again, we'll make it really big. I'll rotate this. That looks pretty good. And then I'll just, again, paint this on. And there we go. Now we've added in different cloud elements into our sky just by brushing them on to our scene. So if I turn this adjustment off and on, and one thing I like to do is if I'm not seeing the whiteness in the shot that I want, I can always modify this mode to classic. And with classic, basically it allows you to modify the tone in this adjustment rather than well, you can modify the color too, but you can also modify the tone. So if I pull up on my exposure here and I want whiter clouds, I can just keep pulling up on my exposure. I mean, obviously that doesn't look natural, but you can see I can kind of fine tune my cloud to my scene. And I can also warm it up with this. So if it needs a little bit more warmth, which I think these clouds do, I can incorporate some warmth in there, and then it matches that scene more. So you can always use your mode, your solid paint, which is basically just going to use whatever paint that you have selected, or you can use that classic, which I like to use if I'm trying to really blend it in with the natural sky that was there. Okay, so now that we painted in those clouds, we can just stylize real quickly with a preset. Really, any of these will do. One of my favorites down here is this vivid landscape, but let's just use instant film. I've been liking these borders lately. And let's just use maybe this one. That's a little too much. Let's do this one. That's a little too much as well. There we go. That's much better. So in an instant, with our preset drawer, we can just stylize creatively, and then we've started with this photograph. And in just a few clicks, we have this image. So very, very helpful if you're looking to incorporate different creative elements into your scene. And you can do it just with brushing with the local adjustment. So very, very easy and very, very helpful. Okay, so the next new feature I want to talk about here is the spot healing brush. So with the spot healing brush, it allows you to remove objects, people, unwanted distractions from your scene in an instant, and it allows you to choose the area that you're basically healing from. If you're familiar with using any of these sort of the spot healing tools on any other programs, then you're probably familiar with the spot healing brush in Photo Raw 2021. Basically, I'll go into my retouching tools, I'll go to my spot healing brush, and with the spot healing brush, all I have to do is paint over the object that I want to remove, such as this guy swimming in the water, and then I have the spot where I can choose to heal from. So I can move this around and choose any of these areas that look most natural. I think that looks pretty good like that. And we can also do it with any of these people on our beach. So let's say I want to remove this large object, this woman pulling up this boat with her significant other here. We can just pull this up or just brush this over a bit. And then I can move this around. And just like that, those people are gone. I can do the same thing with any of these other people on the beach. Just like that. Perfect. And you know, you can continue to do this the entire time and just remove all these people, but you can see how easy it is to go in and remove people from your scene. So if I wanted this guy removed, I can just pull over here. And the great thing about it is it's going to feather the edges of your shot, or feather the edges of your adjustment, so it makes it nice and natural and blended. And just like that, you know, super powerful, super easy to do, and we've already removed the majority of these people from this beach. And if I want to go in and readjust any of these settings, I can just hold down Shift, S, and then I can go back, I can click on any of these points, and then I can, you know, readjust any of these healing areas, just like that. So spot healing brush is a very powerful tool for removing unwanted distractions, people, whatever you want to really remove from your shot, you can do that really easily with the spot healing brush. So the next new feature I want to talk to you guys about is the color range gradient tool inside Photo Raw 2021. Now with color range gradients, it allows you to basically pinpoint areas within your shot. You can mask them in using the gradient tools and shapes, but it allows you to choose colors to specifically apply those adjustments to. So inside Photo Raw 2021, we're just going to use the AI Auto tool. It's a very powerful processing tool and allows you to just automatically develop these settings in your shot. Now I'm just going to head over to my local adjustments here. And inside my local adjustments, I'm going to hold down Shift and hit K on my keyboard. That's going to grab me my adjustable gradient. And with this shot, I'm just going to use my edges shape. I'm going to drop this down. And then I'm basically going to pull these solid edges around until it's only grouped this area with the gal standing here and then these rocks right there. That's all I want out of this color range gradient. So now I'm going to choose my exposure to reset that, and I basically want a bunch of vibrance. So I'm going to click this vibrance option, and then I'm going to pull up on the saturation quite a bit so you guys can see what's going on. And then I'm going to add in structure, just like that. But if I turn this off and on, it's applied everywhere in here, and I only want it applied in this area where the rocks are. So let's go into our masking options. I'm going to choose color range, and then I'm going to drop this area with that green right there. So if I view this now, you can see it's only targeting those areas where I've chosen that color. And I can lower that color range like that. And now it's just pinpointing those specific areas in my shot. So if I view my photograph now and I turn this off and on, it's only applying it to that area that I've chosen, which is very helpful if I'm looking to just selectively apply a tone to a specific spot. I can do that really easy with these color range gradients. And I can also do it with any of these different shapes, so I can add an adjustment. I'll hold down Shift K, I'll drop this down, but we'll use our gradient now. I'll flip this around so that it's only applied to this top area. And let's say I want a little bit of glow on these mountains, but I don't want it on the sky. I can just go into my exposure here. I'll just pull up on my midtones a little bit. I'll remove any structure. And then I'll pull up on my whites just a hair. But I only want this applied to the mountain up there. So I'm just going to go into my masking options. I'll choose color range. And I'll drop it on that color of that mountain. So I'll view this, and then I can just pull back on my color. And there you go. Now it's only applied to that area on that mountain in the background. So if I turn this off and on, now it's adding a bit more exposure and light back into that area in my background. So very helpful tool for just specifically applying an adjustment to a specific area in your shot. Color range gradients are a very powerful tool inside Photorow 2021. And then Rick is asking, how is the color range gradient different than the way we currently use color range? So when you currently use color range, you can't group an area with a gradient or a shape. So if I hide these controls here, let me see. Let's go to so many photos here. Okay, let's do this one. So with this shot here, let's say we want to apply detail just to this line. So I'm just going to add a filter. I'll add dynamic contrast, surreal, and we'll go into our masking options, and I'll choose just a color range mask. And I'll view this, and whenever I choose a color range mask, it's going to basically mask the entirety of my shot and find any of those colors that I pick. So if I click on this color and I drop it on this orange here, oops, I don't want that brush. It's even choosing that color right there, right? But if I pull back on this color range, the more I pull back, it's just removing the color from the entire photograph. But let's say I only wanted to apply to this line, I can just hit Shift K, oops, Shift K, oops, gosh. I thought I had an adjustment. Oh, no, we don't have. Sorry guys, if I hit M on my keyboard, so, God, sorry. So view the mask, right? You can see that by pulling back on that color range, it's only removing the color range from the entire photograph. It's not just removing it from this line. So I can hit M on my keyboard, I'll drop this down, then I can kind of group this any way I want so that this mask is only around that area that I want to modify, right? And then I can lower the feathering so it's not applied to any of those areas outside of it. And now I'm only targeting this line, and I have my color range mask, so I can still pull up on the color range if I want to and modify the color range, but it's only applying it to this area that I've grouped. If I make this any larger, now it's applied to the entire thing. So it's very handy if you're looking to basically group an area that you want to modify, or choose a specific foreground area or background area that you want to modify. It's very helpful for that because you basically group it with your shape and then you choose the color that you want to modify. So I'll pull back on this color range. I don't think we need it that strong. So if we view this now, and I turn this off and on, now that detail is only applied to that line. It's not applied anywhere else in our shot. And it's also helpful if we don't want that detail applied to that line. So if I view this, I can invert this now, view it, and now the detail is applied everywhere but that line within my shot. So it's easy if you want to avoid adjustments on a specific area or you want to provide an adjustment into a specific spot. We've added this feature that allows you to basically view your entire photograph without actually seeing any of the UI, but you can still use any of the masking options or tools that you're used to. So in this shot, let's say we want to add in a bit of dodging and burning. I'm just going to close out of this dynamic contrast. I'm going to go to my local adjustments, and I'll just grab a darkening local adjustment, which is basically going to burn or remove exposure from my shot. Well, I want to see all of the details in this shot without actually seeing any of the UI. So I'm going to hold down Shift and F on my keyboard, and that will pull up my full screen preview mode. So now I don't have any UI around my shot other than whatever tool I have selected in this top toolbar. So I can always just zoom in, and then I can brush. Oops, probably want a little bit more feathering than that. Oops. And then I can modify any of these areas, but I'm viewing it full screen so that I can see all of the details within the shot, and I'm not worried about any of that UI. And then once I'm done, Shift F takes me out of full screen mode, and then I can lower the opacity on this adjustment. And just like that, we've helped out that area in our photograph by kind of dimming it down a bit. And we did it while not looking at any of the UI. So Shift F in Photo Raw 2021, pull up your full screen preview mode in a very easy way to kind of see all of the details within your shot.